Hey everyone, it's Christian, your Vancouver Realtor, and for today's video we're going to look at the federal election and the promises the parties make to fix the housing crisis and affordability issues here in Canada. And what I've done, I know you're busy at home, you've got kids, you've got a job, you don't always have time to pull the party platforms and read over them and try to make sense of them. And so what I'm going to do is share with you what I have gleaned from the three major parties. So we're looking at the Conservatives, the Liberals, and the NDP. We're not going to look at the other two because they're not federal. They have no chance of forming a government. And just before we start, I think a great line, and I remember this when I was in high school and we had the 1993 federal election. Kim Campbell, our first female prime minister, once said, elections are no time to discuss policy. And which sounds kind of contradictory, but what she was getting at was campaigns are like popularity contests in high school. And often the real substantive issues that need to be discussed, that we as Canadians need to learn about, are not discussed. And so the purpose of this video is really to discuss those substantive issues, because housing and affordability are serious issues that we need to talk about, and we need to know where the parties stand. So let's start with the Conservative Party. They were the first one to release the platform. So let's take a look at it. I'm going to run through it and then make a few comments as we go, so that to help you understand whether it would make a difference or not. So first thing the Conservatives say is they want to build 1 million homes in 10 years. So that's a big promise. That's a big project. I'll tell you this, in my research, I found that from 1946 to 1987, here in Canada, the federal government in 40 years managed to build 250,000 homes. So to build 100,000 in 10 years, to build 1 million, 4 times that in 10 years, that's a big order. I don't know if they'll be able to do that. Second thing we have from the Conservative platform is this plan to defer capital gains tax for basically people who are buying investment homes. Now this one strikes me as a pretty good idea. So if you're making a profit, of course, on your properties, you have to pay a capital gains tax. But the Conservatives are saying we're going to let you delay that, and you can use, as long as you use those profits, to buy another property. In essence, they're incentivizing investing in rental housing. So that would be a really, really good start. And because it removes the government from the equation and it lets the private sector, you and me, and private companies do the heavy lifting. I like that one. Next, they say they're going to review the federal government's real estate portfolio. They say the federal government has 37,000 buildings across the country, and that they're going to take 15% of those and put them back into public housing, whether that means converting office buildings to rentals. So what that would mean is, when I crunch the numbers, a little over 6,000 buildings, not homes, buildings, would be put into the rental stock or rent-to-own projects. So that would result in tens of thousands of units for sure. Next, this one's a bit gutsy. They want to ban foreign ownership for 2 years. So I don't think that would make a big difference. When we look at the numbers, less than 1% of actual purchases here in BC, here in Vancouver, are by foreigners. So this is not going to make a big dent in the market. Furthermore, they talk about increasing the mortgage term from, as you know now, to a maximum of 5 years. If you go to your bank and you get a 5-year fixed mortgage, they want to see if they can encourage a market where they can stretch that to 7 or 10 years. In principle, sounds like a great idea. Who wouldn't want to lock up a 2% interest rate for the next 10 years? You could really sleep at night pretty well knowing that for a decade you got rock bottom low interest rates. Whether or not that's doable, I don't know. I think the downside to that is that, of course, you would have a high penalty to cancel your mortgage with the bank if you did it, 2 years into a 10-year term. We'll have to wait for the details on that. A couple of more points here. They say they would remove the stress test. Right now, when your mortgage is up, you've finished 5 years, you can then shop around to different banks. However, you need to go through a stress test. If you renew, let's say you're with TD, you renew your second 5-year term with TD, you do not need to do a stress test. So in essence, TD's got you by the you-know-what. So they're saying they're going to remove that so that the homeowner, can shop around for the best rate, whether it's RBC, TD, CIBC, or you name it. A couple of other points they have here, taking CMHC and just adjusting that. As you know, once you get to you can buy a home with as little as 5% down, up to $500,000. And that might buy you a house in Saskatoon, but in Toronto or Vancouver, that might buy you a studio. And so what the Conservatives are saying is they're going to increase that and adjust it to based on the urban center. So they might increase, it sounds like they would increase it to $600,000 or $700,000. Up to $1 million right now, you can still get CMHC. Above $1 million, you cannot. And so it sounds like they would increase that so that more people can buy and have more options. And then we have finally a promise here to spend $325 million over the next 3 years to create 50 recovery centers and 1,000 new beds. I guess this is for people who are on drugs and homeless. So I think that's that's the feel-good move from the Conservatives there to the left of center crowd. So that's the Conservative plan. Personally, I really like the second point there, deferring the capital gains tax. I think that has a lot of potential because it allows people to take their profits and reinvest it without getting taxed. Let's move along to the Liberals. Liberals were slower to release their platform, and it looks in some instances like they've just copied the Conservatives here. What's different? The first thing, the Liberals have said they're going to create a first-time buyer's savings account so that you can save $40,000 tax-free, kind of like your tax-free savings account, except this would only be used to buy a home. And you have to be under 40. So $40,000 for under 40s. And you can take that money out tax-free only for a purchase of a home. The second point here that catches my attention is they would reduce the CMHC premiums by 25%. That's going to reduce, you might save $50 a month, maybe you'd save $100 a month. I don't know that it's going to make a big difference certainly to home prices. They promised to build 1.4 million homes in the next 10 years. This one looks like they just literally copied the Conservatives on this one and then just added rounded up. The challenge with these is that the bill, it's nice for the federal government, for these parties to promise building all these homes, but approvals, permits, zoning is all done at a local level. So they're going to have to get really specific here with this legislation to make sure that the turnaround time is very fast, because that's been the problem in the past. Federal government announces some big program, they're going to spend $2-3 billion, but what happens? It takes forever for it to get done at the local level. Okay, let's move along. They announced a home tax credit, a renovation tax. So you're going to renovate your home, you can write some of that off, so that would help. That certainly would help the renovators and contractors out there, plus home builders and homeowners. They say $2.7 billion for a housing co-investment fund. There's no specifics on this. We do not know how this would work. Interestingly, the Liberals now have a buyer bill of rights. And this had several points in here, and I wanted to share these with you. I don't know how doable these all are. First thing is they want to ban blind bidding. So this is where you get a house, you get multiple offers, there's 7 offers on the property. The listing agent doesn't tell the buyer's agents, us, if we're the buyer's agent, we don't know where the other offer is. Personally, I don't know that this will lead to lower prices. I can just tell you we had a case where we were one of 7 offers on a beautiful ground floor, 2-bedroom, lots of yard space out in Port Moody. We ended up losing out. If we had a bidding process where you knew, oh, the other party's at $860, we go to $865, now $870, they're at $875. I think it could lead. I don't think it's going to lead to prices coming down. I think prices would. It won't make a difference. It'd be interesting. I'd like to see how this would come about. I know in Australia they use this type of system. No, Australian home prices are extremely high. Now moving along, Liberals say a legal right to home inspection. I don't know how this would work. You can, as a home buyer, do an inspection now. You can do it before the sellers even look at offers. One concern I have with this is it looks like the Liberals are grabbing a lot of stuff just out of the air or kind of headlines they've read about and trying to make this law, which is, I think it's going a bit quick here. And I've seen buyers tie up properties with home inspections and then come back and grind the sellers for another $50,000 off, which is also kind of hitting below the belt. So, they would have to get very specific here about how this is going to work, and it's not buyers taking advantage of homeowners. It's very easy to portray homeowners, if a couple gets 7 offers on their home. But it doesn't mean that they're bad people. It just means maybe they've got a really nice home, they've taken care of it, they've renovated it, they've hired an agent like me. I'm very transparent to begin with, and we just, the property shows well, we get a lot of interest. That's not a bad thing, and I think the Liberals here are just trying to kind of pander to the angry the buyer crowd. Moving along, in terms of Liberal promises, they say they would make it a requirement to share all sales history for homes. Realtors already do this. We already do this. I share all the history. I can take the last 100 sales in the tower and send it to my client in 2 mouse clicks. Very easy to do. Very good realtors will always do this anyway. Moving along, they would allow banks and lenders to defer mortgage payments so if you couldn't make the mortgage payment, you could defer it for up to 6 months. Okay, if you lose your job, this really helps because now you got 6 months to get on your feet. It's not going to do anything about making homes affordable. And then there's a few more here where it looks like they're just kind of late to the party. For example, the Liberals promise to stop rent-evictions. It's already hard to do a rent-eviction. Here in BC, you have to supply permits to your local municipality to rent-evict your tenant. So nobody does it. They want to stop unfair rent increases. Again, here in BC, we already have that. You can't rent. You can only raise rent by inflation, which is about 2%. They want to introduce an anti-flipping tax. This one I do not like. I think it's very impractical. They're saying that when you buy a property, you have to hold it for 1 year. Well, I've seen a lot of people, the guy gets a job offer in Calgary. So after 8 months of living there, he wants to sell his property and move. I've seen cases where she's pregnant. Now they want to upsize. Mom's coming from Vietnam to live with the family. They want to move into something bigger. So how would that work? We don't know. We don't have any answers to that. Sometimes couples separate, right? You don't want to force them to live together for another 8 months. So this is really impractical. I think they really have to give some thought to this. And the Liberals, here they just grab one from the Conservatives. They would ban foreign ownership for a certain time, which I guess is meant to be 2 years. So I don't know. I'm really not big on that Bill of Rights. I think we already have a lot of that, and a lot of that is done at the provincial level and by the real estate boards. For the federal government to make this stuff law, I think seems to be an exercise in red tape, if you know what I mean. Finally, let's look at the NDP. The NDP promises to give renters $5,000. So right off the bat, they want to give back $5,000. This is basically what socialist parties do, right? Is just give money. Of course, you and I have to pay for that. So we'd be subsidizing renters, and of course that would probably go up to $10,000 in the years to come. NDP promises to build 500 affordable housing units in the next 10 years. Okay, so it's kind of like similar to the Liberals and the Conservatives. They want to set up a fast start funds to streamline the application process in terms of building more rental houses. That's all I got here. There's no more specifics. They want to double the home buyer credit, so that means $1,500 in your pocket, so that's nice. Another policy point the NDP has here is they want to increase the CMHC mortgage amortization period to 30 years. Now that would help. That would probably reduce your monthly payments by $200-300 depending on the size of your mortgage. And they want to increase the foreign buyer tax. So we have that in some cities now, but we don't have that at a federal level. And they want to hammer on a 20% foreign buyer tax. So that would be any property in the country that is bought by someone who is not Canadian or not a resident. And tackle money laundering. So that's where the NDP is coming from. But all the parties actually say they plan to tackle money laundering. And how exactly they're going to do that, they don't really say. But anyway, so I thought this would help you just understand some of the specifics of what these parties are planning to do. So maybe it saves you an hour or 2 hours of reading. If you found this useful, subscribe or give us a thumbs up. We love having you. And feel free to leave your comments below. And we'll see you next time.